Welcome back, folks, to the Dope Stroke podcast. This is episode 2, series 2. We got all the twos going on. The usual crew are here. They need no introduction, but we're going to get straight into this one. We got a guest with them. It's Evan El-Saden, the VP of Innovation from Full Swing Simulators. This boy is not messing around. We've gone with fanning. We've done the fanning about. We've gone mainstream. We've got the main man in. TGL is hot right now. We're going to talk all about that. But of course, the first thing we're going to get into is we're going to thank you for this early start, Evan. And straight out the gate, we're not messing around. I told you at some point there was a question coming. I'm going with it. First, talk to me about Tiger's wedge shot. We got to get social media is all about clickbait. We got to hear what you got to say. I want the full explanation, and then people can dive in and settle in.
Well, appreciate you boys having me on. 7 a.m. It's a good time for me. Kiddos are up, so if they're running by, I apologize now. Tiger's wedge shot. Let's talk about it. So, a couple things happened. So, Tiger hit the ball in the game. Obviously, he flew it further than he had thought he did. And, I can't speak to, his belief on that shot. All I can do is kind of tell you guys, we did find something in the game, a little bit of a bug. Whereas when a ball would go out into the water, the carry distance displayed the water value. So his actual carry yardage, which we did not display, unfortunately, was 118. The total yardage was, I think, 130 or 131 is what it showed on screen after going into the water. A little bit of a bug in the game. We've already addressed it and fixed it, but that had no effect on the actual visualization of the shot and where it landed in the game. It just displayed the wrong number. So, I mean, that's kind of the short of it. Not really much more I can comment on outside of that, but I mean, that specific bug in the game we addressed.
How many times have you answered that question in the last week?
It's probably about my 10th time.
Mate, I'm going to let the boys dive into this because we had thousands of questions. But I do just want to, as we back into this and your journey into where you're at today, I want to just say congratulations, because having been to a TGL event, and I'm starting with banter, but I think it's important everyone understands yourself has absolutely crushed this. You have put so much work in.
Appreciate that, guys. Thank you.
But mate, you and I have been trying to connect for a while. We've been trying to get some work done together, and you've just been the busiest guy in golf, and this is a massive success. So all jokes aside, we get the explanation of the carry distance. Again, I know Bobsy and Dazzler have got a ton of questions, but talk to us a little bit about the pressure you've been under to get this where it's at. And I mean, what you've achieved is phenomenal.
I appreciate that. I mean, it's been probably 2.5 years in the making, and it's pretty funny because I think originally when this came up for discussion, there's so many different directions we as a business are trying to go and grow. And this one had literally no pressure from the beginning. Ryan, our CEO, is, Chris, it was just, hey, go talk to these guys and appease them. Something might not even come of it after the first conversation. And quite frankly, after the first few conversations, I was like, these guys are absolutely insane. They were talking about all sorts of weird stuff. And so originally there was no pressure. And then we started just to put our heads down and grind through kind of the requirements. When they came to us originally, there was really no scope. I mean, by that, I mean, they didn't have the rule set down. They didn't know the format. They didn't know who they wanted to be a part of this endeavor from a tech standpoint, from a broadcast standpoint. I mean, nothing was really set in stone, which is kind of odd because you're there almost as a consultant in a lot of ways and helping them write their business requirements. Like, what is TGL now? I mean, we came up with a lot of stuff for them just because we're the subject matter experts in the space. So they kind of came up to us and we wrote, I think I counted 250 pages of business and technical requirements to the level of specificity that, like, this button does this, does not do that. I mean, every single thing that we could possibly imagine. And, sure enough, you pick your head up 3 months in, you've got all the requirements down. I put together a schedule with all the people that we thought it would take. And then from a business standpoint, you kind of have to assess the opportunity costs, right? If we go and do this, which has no guarantee, absolutely no guarantee. In fact, I couldn't even guarantee we could build what we said we were going to build. We just, in theory, it made sense that we could do it, right? But everything that we said we were going to do was like a 10 or 12x multiplier on what we've done at the consumer level. And then, it can't fail. And it's going to be on live TV, which I thought was absolutely ludicrous. for something of this magnitude, right? So, you're kind of weighing this against all the other initiatives that you have in the business, and I think in total it was like around 40 people, around 80, close to 75, 80,000 hours of work
Sure.
that we estimated. Now, where we came in, I think might have been just slightly under that. But I mean, it can kind of give you an understanding of the magnitude and gravitas of this. And then the dome collapses,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you're like,
Was that
and
a
it's
good
kind of
thing
awkward.
though? That presented
Oh,
an opportunity because
yeah.
you've got a whole year then to kind of like, get yourself ready for the following season. That must have been a massive help.
Had we known there would have been 2 years, it would have been a lot easier. But trying to wrap this thing up in the first year just would have been, I mean, there would have been a lot of issues, and I can almost guarantee it wouldn't have been live.
Okay.
Would it have gone off? Maybe, right? Who knows? But I think everybody who's got a vested interest thought, okay, there we go. We bought ourselves some time. But it was awkward because you don't quite know what to do after you see the pictures and this giant turntable's rusting. You can see it from a satellite when you search the address. But yeah, that extra year was really helpful. But it kind of threw off our timing. Like, as I mentioned, we had a bunch of other initiatives from a business we were trying to get into, and now it's like press pause and pick it back up. And so, yeah, it's been really, really stressful from that standpoint. But because we bought ourselves more time, we accelerated a lot of these efforts, and now we had more time for testing. So the more testing time was extremely helpful. We went to 2 different kind of test locations where they built out like a third of what the venue would have been outside of the turntable. They kind of took one of the virtual green components. They were able to test, the turf. We were able to test the system. But there were a few things that we couldn't really test in a demo site, only at the venue itself. So when that did kind of come up for our move to bring everything over there, I mean, we basically had to try a few things out for the first time in that October, November timeframe, which, again, doesn't buy you much time.
Yeah.
So
Sorry, go on, Bubs.
I'll jump in here, Dazzler.
Yeah, no, go for it. Live the dream.
Going back to those very first conversations, Evan, obviously nothing like this has been done before, so you had nothing really to look at to base any ideas on. So you were, I guess, almost had a blank slate. So those first few conversations, those ideas that were discussed and those visions, how close are we now to what you thought in those first few meetings? Has it changed a lot, or is it pretty much exactly as you kind of saw it happening?
I think once we landed on the requirements, it was built to plan, but there were some big conversations at the beginning. I'll give you a few examples of like craziness. Like, so we've got the mechanical green, right? The virtual green with the actuators.
That's phenomenal.
And these guys were hell bent on real grass. And I'm thinking to myself, you have to water real grass. You've got all this tech underneath it, right? And they were hell bent on trying to get real grass there. And I'm like, I get it, totally get it. But it seemed like a liability, really, from our standpoint. So that was, and it weighs a ton as well. And that kind of force on top of these actuators, we didn't quite know, how that would set in. They wanted to simulate wind, which we actually can do in the game even today. But they were talking about bringing like real wind blowers, things like that. And I mean, those are the conversations where you're just looking at your watch like, these guys are nutty. Like we gotta pivot. We gotta go.
When you're saying, I'm quite interested. Yeah. When you say these guys, who are they? Are you talking TGL to PJ Tour?
Yeah. So Tomorrow Sports, the group behind TGL. So Tomorrow Sports had kind of their head of innovation or player experiences, I think maybe his role, Scott Armstrong, him and like 5 consultants. So guys who I don't even know if they're with the firm any longer, but their team was small and they've expanded it out obviously to what they are today. Their CTO, who came actually from Top Tracer, was someone who I worked much more closely with because they kind of had the visionary guy in there, and then they need someone to kind of do checks and balances on the tech side of things, right? Someone who kind of oversee not only the integration of all the tech, but he kind of oversaw the building itself and the construction of the building, because you have things like the power requirements, the internet requirements, and all the unsexy stuff that you kind of have to go through. So he kind of managed that as well. So Andrew McCauley came on, and He was kind of my contact. But yeah, we spent 3 months with Andrew, who's their CTO, and then Scott Armstrong, kind of their head of player experience, myself and Brian Farley, who's kind of my counterpart on the product side. And we just, I mean, we saw them more than our wives. My wife would tell you that was a dark time for us here. So yeah.
For yourself and Brian, this has got, I mean, I hear you talk about this with so much passion. This has got to have been very, very fulfilling, but also put you in a place in the industry now. I mean, you've done something that people couldn't dream of doing and brought it to life.
Yeah. I mean, like I always say that innovation gets thrown around a lot. And I think it's kind of one of those words now where, you can iterate on something you do and it's a type of innovation, right? So there's different kind of innovation classifications. This one is what I would call radical disruptive. And the only way you can really achieve this is just you have to adapt every day because, we talked about it before, something on paper looks like it works and then you get out there, you build it, you're like, oh God, this is a bad idea. We got to pivot. And so when it comes together, I mean, I've always said this too, we could not control the broadcast, how it's distributed, right, to the general audience. But from a personal standpoint, and I'd be remiss not to mention some key players, we have a few groups that we subcontract out with, and we work with them on the launch monitor, Trottie, as you know, Systematic Consulting Group, Backburner Labs. I mean, these two partners are so vital in this kind of coming together too, because they've kind of been an arm of our business for so long, and it just made all the sense to bring them along for the ride. But once it was built and the system was up and running, and we've got this kind of system dashboard with every system, and there's probably 25 things that we monitor from a health standpoint. Green means good, and when the whole thing was kind of lit up green, yeah, you take a lot of pride in it, and regardless if the public consumed it or not, it was just awesome to see it come together, right? But you can't control, the market acceptance of it, and that's not anything I don't think they could have really tested prior to us getting there, right? I mean, it's just you kind of have to believe in it. So yeah, I mean, it's been really fulfilling.
So people watching the TGL potentially might not be that familiar with Full Swing. Obviously, that SoFi Centre is incredibly high tech, but me, Trottie, and Dazzler, we use the Full Swing kits, which are pretty small, portable, dead easy to use. Gives me data on my swing. Then you've got the studio and the simulators, so you have got huge amounts of products out there, covering different levels of golfer. But I saw the kind of Full Swing behind the build, which is a video on YouTube. I'll get Lloyd to link it. That was really incredible insight. And you were talking about how this is almost like your Formula One car and how you can use what you've learned here to filter down into those other products. So this must put you in an incredibly advantageous position for the next 5-10 years in that simulator market for personal use, for launch monitor use. It must be incredible to have that as the sort of flagship product and have it filter down.
Yeah. So, Jason Fiera, who's my boss, I work directly with him. He's our chief operating officer. He likes to say it's the best kept secret in golf, the launch monitor. And, it's one of those things where we came out to market. I mean, look at TVs and, the first 4K TV was probably $15,000. Now you can buy one for $500 right at Walmart. We came out with a product that was extremely accurate, just as accurate as the best, the TrackMans of the world, the quads of the world, but really TrackMan from like a one-to-one, radar type of core technology. And we were able to do it, just as accurate as them for a fourth or fifth of the price. And it's such a hard conversation to have when people are like, well, how can it be that good for $5,000? It's like, well, we figured out how to do it, with less stuff inside, and therefore those cost savings that we received, we transfer to the consumer. That story's been really hard to tell. And even if someone believes in it, I mean, they still might have a device. And so, you're kind of trying to organically just create that story. And the more, time we're in market, the more updates that we make, I think the more adoption we're seeing. But something like this, a stage like this just kind of gives credit to the business in a way where it's like, how can you not believe it when you see yourself in person, but ultimately when it's on TV, right? I mean, it's part of the tech stack that TGL put together, and they had their choice. They could have gone after anything, and they chose to do it. And so the launch monitor is a key key part of this. Not the only part of it, but it's a key part of it. And we've got a bunch of them out there for, right-handed, left-handed golfers, redundancy in case one of them fails. They work together in a way where they kind of vote on a shot and say, we saw this. Another one might say, hey, we saw that. If there's a majority, we use that value. So it's a pretty clever way we set these things up. And we're learning so much about ball characterization, especially at this really awkward distance. So a lot of people say, oh, radar launch monitors aren't, the kind of end all be all indoors. Yeah, but it's like you've got 30 yards of ball flight. Like that's a lot of flight. That kind of teeters on, the fringe of what radars might think an outdoor shot, as much as they need to see from an outdoor shot, for example. So I think there's a lot of, there's a lot of people out there that now are making videos and saying, trying to, stake their claim as to why, they don't think our text is good, this and that. I love it. I welcome it all. Losers whine about the best, right? The best go home and F the prom queen. It's a Sean Connery quote right there. But no, we love it. I mean, being on the world stage is great. And we're so happy to be a part of this. And yeah, I mean, you guys know how good the product is. It's good to see the general consumer kind of getting a glimpse into what the brand's all about. And we're hoping to see a massive increase in sales. But then ultimately, look, at the end of the day, if this grows the game, that's really where everybody wins, not just us.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
I think you're right about, as soon as you start to position yourself as a leader, that's when all the critics come out. So it's definitely complimentary of the quality of the products that you're bringing out.
Yeah.
The way that everything has transpired on the broadcast with TGL in particular. I think all of that stuff is definitely complimentary of what Full Swing have been able to achieve, obviously under your guidance within that, which is amazing, which is why I've got my next query, which is really about, and you touched on it, the tech stack. And it's the technology part of everything. I'm really keen to know and get under the hood of, we've seen the product on TV. We've seen how good it is. We've seen how well received it's been by the media and by the public. But I want to know, what was the real challenge that you had to overcome to get it to the broadcast? Was it the green, the rotating green? Was it something to do with the way that the ball flight, so certainly the distance from the screen as well? How did you overcome what you would perceive to be the biggest challenge in developing TGL?
Yeah. I think the biggest challenge was really the architecture underneath it all. So you ingest kind of two different shot inputs into a game. We've never done that before. That game kind of holds the keys to everything else that you see out there. So each hole embedded in it has the coordinates for how far the green should rotate. And then for each of the three virtual green platforms, how much they should undulate. All of that data kind of lives within each hole. That hole then has to send the message back to the green to do those different things. And so it's really the architecture underneath it, making sure it kind of all works together, which was really a challenge because we've never integrated our virtual green, for example, our consumer product with a simulator before. I mean, they just hadn't worked together because there's a limit in terms of the real estate available on the virtual greens as we built them today. But when you have one that's 125 feet in diameter, I mean, you can do anything, right? So it kind of made all the sense to do that. But, as far as challenges go, I think the architecture probably was number one. The turntable was a beast because we send the coordinates for this thing to mechanically move, but it was another, group that was responsible for building that table itself. And so it sat there for a year rusting in the ground. And you're kind of just hoping that when we fire things up, this table, moves quickly enough, not too loud. It's precise in terms of the coordinates where it's, stopping. I mean, all those things you kind of had to figure out within a month's time. I think that was probably the last thing we had to worry about.
It moves pretty quick. That was what I noticed.
Yeah,
The thing moves quick.
Right.
You don't want to be stood on this thing. It's like a kid's roundabout. You'd be getting flung off in every direction.
Yeah, it moved really quick, and we had to slow it down actually. So, I mean, that was a pleasant surprise because I was a little bit worried about that. But everything else, I think we felt that we had enough, again, real estate for, when shots are being taken at 30 yards, for example, or even 21 yards. I mean, that should be, enough time for us to kind of characterize what was going on with that ball. And then the latency. I mean, that's another thing. So with live broadcasts, you want to make sure that you're chasing that ball, pretty quick, which was a little bit of a development for us. We had to kind of increase the processing speed versus like what we have, in market today. But other than that, I'm just thinking here, another thing that I think is really kind of cool that no one really gets to see. For every shot that's taken, we've got 8 different views within the virtual world of that same shot. So you can kind of cut to, cameraman 1 through 7 or 1 through 8, whatever it is. And you can pick different angles of that shot to see it either coming at you. Like if you're green side, you want to see an approach shot, that kind of cam. If you want to be behind the golfer. I don't think broadcast has really played around with that too much yet. I think they're maybe playing it safe, but there's so many different angles that you can pick to depict, what that shot did. And I'm excited to see them kind of use some of those other views as well.
So with the full swing kit, which is the launch monitor aspect of this, did that piece come out before the simulator, or did the simulator come out before the kit?
Oh, the simulator has been in market much longer than kit. I mean, that's really the bread and butter of our business for close to 40 years now.
Okay. And then
yeah.
obviously when you walk down the halls at Carlsbad, sorry to interject, you're in the shadows on the walls of some absolute ballers that are part of the company.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to start reeling them off because I think some of them might be private, but the main one who I know is used a lot in marketing, Tiger Woods. So you bring a launch monitor to Tiger. Talk to us a bit about that experience and how you took where you were at in the simulator business to the greatest player arguably of all time.
Yeah. He was really the reason why we went and even approached that project to begin with. I think for a long time he was a TrackMan user and he was having issues with this TrackMan, and he goes, look, it misses 1 out of every 5 drives I hit. He had some issues with it performing consistently, and so he basically said, we want a stable product that's reliable, accurate. And he's not looking at 16 data points. He's looking at a few, but we wanted to make sure that if we have the right tech for indoor simulation, we wanted to complement that with a solution that outdoors can do full flight measurement of a ball. And so when we brought him the launch monitor and we did a few iterations, I think a lot of people say, oh, Tiger's an investor, this or that, but it's like, you guys know this. I mean, Tiger does not put his stamp on anything unless he feels good about it, regardless. He doesn't need the money. But we all know that. Yeah. So we really, I mean, all the stories you hear from, TaylorMade and clubs and being a foot or 2 foot off what he thought a ball should have done, and they go back to the drawing board. We were in the same situation. And so we really had to make sure this thing passed the Tiger test before we could even roll this thing out to market. And we've made so many improvements even after we've gone out in market with some different things that we've learned. And we're able to just kind of push them through software updates, which is great, firmware updates, which we've done probably close to 10 of since we launched.
We haven't touched on this yet, but how much, your history to get into this, how much of a golf fan, and I understand Full Swing is a very cool company and tries not to be too geeky on the golf fans, but how much of a golf fan are you? Because, I mean, this is a big thing on the golfing fan resume.
Yeah. I'm a big golf fan, not a great golf player. I was a soccer player or football player, maybe.
Good lad.
Yeah, there you go. Big United fan. No, I'm.
Oh Jesus! Let's end this podcast. We're done.
Game over. Game over.
We're going through a rough patch right now.
Damn right you are. Yeah, it's lovely to watch.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
I know. But no, I mean, I've been a huge golf fan. Been part of, it's been part of my family for a long time. I've had I've been fortunate enough to have access to country clubs growing up. Just golf was not something I had the patience for growing up. And I always say, if we had things like simulators around and launch monitors where you could, play fun games and kind of, get me interested in terms of infusing tech maybe into golf, it probably would have been a different story for me, honestly. So, Trottie, you might need to come in and help me out here, because now that we've got some more press, I feel like I got to perform.
You're getting those fancy games offered up. You're like, I want to play. I know that feeling.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking. I mean, ultimately, it's on steroids, but this is a golf simulator, right? That's what this is. It's just bigger and better than we've ever seen before. Which takes me back to working at the Belfry, early 2000s, with these two that I'm on the call with here. And we had a simulator installed in the academy. And it didn't matter what club you hit. It could have been a putter. But if you hit it bottom left corner, it would go 320 yards. And it's just crazy how far we've come since then. But I have got two questions. The first one is, you mentioned there were some early conversations about introducing the potential of wind and different things. So obviously, we're enjoying what we've got at the moment, but have you got any exclusives for what might be coming in the next 2 to 3 years? I'm potentially thinking, could you get the hitting surface to undulate like the green to replicate certain lies in the fairway? And then the second question is, you will have obviously tested this thing rigorously before launching, but what would happen if you had someone like Daryl who can't reach the screen from the back tee box? What would happen then?
Before you answer that question, Evan, I just want to compliment Chris on his wonderful set of teeth.
I knew that was coming. I was going to get that next. Look at those turkey teeth.
Pearly whites, I tell you.
Mate, I mean, this is going to date me, but you could get a spot in the Beano with this kid. Let's ask this question. If he comes in, if you come in, Bubsy, and hit a shot on one of Evan's launch monitors, do those teeth impact the reading?
We're not light sensitive, okay? So if the light's beaming off those guys, we're okay. No, it's a great question. I mean, we'll be able to track any shot you hit. I mean, even if you duff it. I don't know if you guys saw, is it Jersey Jerry? I'm not too familiar with him, but I mean, he saw some of the shots he was hitting, right? And the ball was tracking. It's just he did not have it. I don't know if he ever does have it, but he was shanking him all over the place, and it was the best testing we did. I mean, no one could test all those different parts of the virtual world. So
I heard that one celebrity missed the screen. Were you there that day?
Happens. No, I wasn't there that day, but I've come in after hours and hit a few shots. Thankfully, I haven't gone that wide, right or left, but they've got a bunch of LED boards on either side. I think they ordered like 150 extra panels in the event that someone did shank one and give it a good go. So
I heard they had a DJ booth originally on the left before the LED board, and a guy fired one through the DJ booth, and they were like, whoa, fix this up. That's what I heard, but
maybe.
Wow. So one more question from me really about TGL and what do you think would be the next thing? Like you obviously mentioned earlier, but you got the 8 different shots that you can see. Sure. They're underutilizing that, but what do you think we might see either this season or going into the next season? That could be something that you wish you had put in play this year, but you know that you needed more time to put in for the following year.
That's a great question. I think we got a lot in that we wanted to. I think we're already talking about more holes. I know the holes that were designed, they didn't want to get too far out there, although some of them look a little out there. I think they wanted to, kind of resonate first with the general public, but I think you'll start to see a lot of craziness when it comes to like architecting new holes. And the way that process kind of works is we work with either the Nicholas Group, Bill Welling, or Augie Pisa. Augie Pisa actually has got the most insane design concepts. I bet you a lot of them were shot down, but I think you'll start to see kind of the concepts come to, a little bit crazier schemes and strategy for different holes. We obviously design those holes and bring them to life on the screen itself. But those guys are the ones who kind of put pen to paper and say, hey, this would be a cool idea. The Tomorrow Sports Group kind of blesses it, and then we kind of go ahead and start building into the virtual world. So I think that's one thing you'll see is an expansion of the portfolio of holes. Another thing is you might see physical obstructions in the arena to shots. So rather than just having, an obstruction in the game, you might actually see like something physically out there in front of the golfer that they've got to hit. Between which, from a liability standpoint, I can't speak to, but certainly seems like an interesting concept.
That's going to be a nightmare for you with the radars and the tech. Nothing's a nightmare for you, is it? I mean, you're a Man United fan who's figured this out.
Yeah, right. We have all the money in the world, right? And we still can't get it right. No, I think that will be interesting to see what happens with that. But they started to talk about that a little bit. And then, Chris, I think you mentioned it, making the hitting surfaces, so these guys can't lie on flat. If they're on if they're hitting on an upslope or downslope, maybe introducing some of that into
Yeah.
the equation would probably be, a logical thing to do. Um, Other than that, I'm just trying to think. I think these guys are really serious about it. If this does take off and do as well, everyone's hoping, bringing this to other facilities,
Mm.
which, gosh, that sounds stressful just saying that out loud. But if we brought these, to other parts of the United States or even, across overseas, I
Mm.
think that'd be a really cool idea if a team actually had a home course, so to
Yeah.
speak, right?
So,
That could be pretty cool.
so thinking about that, obviously, this is such an innovative concept. Everything about it's amazing, right? As Troy's already alluded to, as has Chris. So bringing this out to so many different facilities, like how have you got here? Like, what's the backdrop of your career that's led you to the moment where you're bringing this level of innovation to the game of golf, which is, as we all know, been a victim of traditionalism. Like, how have you got here? I'm really keen to know who you are and how you arrived at this place.
Yeah, nothing that's going to make too much sense. I'll tell you that.
You played for
I think
Manchester United. Is that what you're going to say?
right. No, no. So
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
my background was really in the CPG world. So I came from the consumer goods space to Full Swing about 7 years ago, and I kind of led up product development for my uncle's company. He started a company called Contigo water bottles and coffee mugs and things of that nature. So I worked in that space, working at distributed in Targets, Walmarts of the world, Costco's of the world. Um, he then joined a kind of a private equity group that came in and bought Full Swing, and he saw an opportunity in the product side for someone who's got more of a traditional kind of market research background to kind of come in and bring some, just bring a little bit of more, I don't know, I don't want to say professionalism, but some kind of research backed ideas. And
Mhm.
that's really where I come in as user experience. I'm all about, user experience and the other part of my role too, outside of innovation, is programs. And programs is really about execution, right? A lot of
Mhm.
companies have strategy, but they don't execute. And
Yeah.
execution is something that I really hang my hat on, is the detail, getting to market.
Mhm.
So the launch monitor was probably on day two. Ryan Daughters, our CEO, says, "Hey, build me a launch monitor." And I had no clue what the hell that was. I'm like, "A what?" I've got no idea. So I had to, sit there and research all these different companies and brands, but making sure that we develop something that users would can interface with, that's easy to understand. The app is seamless, making complex data easy to digest for any golfer type was something that I pride myself in because, again, I'll say it on here, I'm a 15 handicap. So, a lot of those data points are a little bit above my head, right? And
Mhm.
so how do I get someone like myself who might have the disposable income, to invest in something like that? How can I benefit from this product as well as, a scratch golfer or a professional golfer? So
Mhm.
that's really where you try to figure out, how do you make this digestible for kind of all consumer types? And so that was kind of the first thing that I did with Full Swing, along with kind of iterative maintenance on the simulator, pushing ourselves to continue ourselves into the software world, where when I first came to Full Swing, we didn't really own our own fate on the software side. We relied on a third party. And then we invested a ton of money into a branch of the company where we now have state of the art designers. And in fact, we designed courses for TGL. Again, just another
Mhm.
testament to what we've done. But yeah, that's kind of been my journey. And, I think the key is just not getting overwhelmed. Just head down, say, look, be confident in yourself. Don't be a victim of the imposter syndrome where you think, okay, why me? Like, how can I possibly do something like that? You just find a lot of smart people and you create excitement, and you got to keep people motivated, especially when they have no clue where this thing's going. For 2.5 years, how do you keep people motivated? And it's that message of, we're going to do something special, and we might fall flat on our face, which is fine. You don't make any shots you don't take, right? And
I think it's
it's that.
awesome, mate. I mean, when it makes me think back to the start of this podcast, when just to get a few clicks, I've got to come in with a negative question, which I hate, because basically you've done so well with everything that you've created, the golf courses through to the greens, through to everything else. I mean, it's just a matter of time really until Dotters and the boys give you a parking space at headquarters, isn't it? I mean, We're going to do
Never
right next
happened.
to the front. Do you want me to figure that out? Dazzler, you can get on that. I mean, he needs a parking space right next to the front door.
You can have one here in Europe.
They'll make a point. They'll make a point to put me back in my place after seeing this, boys. So this is the best it's going to get.
So one of the things that we do here on the Don't Stroke podcast is we talk about, we've got a top 10 beer list going. Some of the call outs so far, we had Scott Fassett with Will Zalatoris when he won that US Junior. That was one of his greatest moments. He said the beer that he had after that was pretty impressive. Lee Crumbleholm was a sports psychologist. Brandon Grace's fourth win. He enjoyed a Sagres at Villamora. Daryl, God knows what we've got him on the list for. Bubsy's got Banks beer honeymoon in Barbados. We're questioning whether he drank the beer there or not. Here we go. Daryl Table Mountain. There's a South African. That might have been
Castle Lager, yeah.
I thought that was someone who called in. But where is your best beer that you've ever had? And I mean, I will also want to know the celebratory drink after actually seeing the first episode of this thing. So whether that's in your top 10 or not, that needs to go on here. What was it and where was it? And tell us about that.
Just before you went for Evan, last week we had the bombshell from Trottie that he drinks every single day. So we found out that we have recorded 12 podcasts with an intoxicated Trottie over
at 7 a.m.
I'm on dry January, and when we get out the other side of it, I'm getting on these bad boys just for
sons and daughters. Yeah, there you go.
There you go. I'll drink that. I'll drink that whenever it's around.
Alcohol on hand? No, you're the only one who can reach alcohol at 7 a.m. in the morning.
You don't know what's in these mugs.
I don't know how Trottie does it in our office because we got those bottles everywhere. I mean, you know, you're probably inebriated every time I see you. No, so my favorite, I mean, look, not really momentous, but my favorite beer, I mean, I'm pretty old school. I like a nice Guinness on tap. I mean, that's my drink. Nothing special about it. It's nice and full. I love it. Guinness is you know, my beer of choice, but on I would say not my celebratory drink, but my pregame drink for TGL was tequila. Yeah, I had some. I think I had some Casamigos. You know, neat, just ready to go.
Strong. Yeah. Put some hair on your chest. That will, yeah, for sure.
And is there any poignant either tequila or Guinness that you've had in celebration where you've been in a certain place or with a certain group of people that you're like, you know what, this is pretty cool? Do you know Piers Ward actually came in with Alex Ferguson's bar at Old Trafford? You'll like that one.
Yeah.
He's near the top of the list with that. I don't know why, because he's Man United, but whatever.
I'm not a big drinker. I mean, and I say, you know, I'll say thank you for whatever you pour me. So I'm a cheap date, but I'll just say that I love a good tequila. I think we're growing up. I had some pretty bad tequila, and I think a lot of people do, so they don't drink it, you know, past their 20s. But I've been fortunate enough to have some pretty good tequila around, and you know, nothing really. I don't really fancy anything in particular. I mean, I drink sparingly, but when I do, I go pretty hard. So that's one thing I'm good for is a good time.
McD, you go pretty hard, don't you, McD? I mean, it takes us a while to get you warmed up. You go pretty hard.
Oh, you know, little guy, big heart and all that. Go big, right? That's how it works. You know, live the dream, Trottie. Keep up. That's all you need to worry about is just keeping up. But I'm not sure if anybody can keep up with you, Trottie, with the volumes that you're consuming. So
Jesus Christ,
I think we're all
you worry about yourself.
At 7 a.m.
I'll just keep the show going. You worry about yourself.
You're like Alan Brazil.
I'll ask Evan a question quickly. Just talking about like celebratory beers, that kind of stuff. The first event, TGL, I think it was Bay Golf Club, New York Golf Club. Obviously, it was live on TV. Where did you watch that? And as a team, was there a big kind of celebration after that because it was such a success, or was it straight back to work? Let's make sure we get it right for the next one as well.
I mean, we had a watch party at our office, and myself, Jason Fiero, our COO, Ryan Daughters, our CEO. We all kind of show up at different times, and we all just kind of look at each other with this look of like, oh gosh, here we go. And I had a drink, but both those guys were drinking, right? So I'm throwing a few of them back, and I'm just watching every shot, just tense as can be. And same was true with week 2. It's hard for me to enjoy the product. I know it might sound ridiculous. I can't watch it as a general consumer and enjoy it. I'm just looking for everything I know that could happen. And when it doesn't happen, it's just kind of like, a little bit of relief. But yeah, I'm hoping I can kind of cross over to the point where I can just consume it and feel good about it. There's nothing I can obviously do, but we do have, 5, 6 people there on site in case things do go wrong that, they know what to do. We've done so many dress rehearsals. We have so many kind of fail-proof mechanisms where if something does happen, we've got an answer for it. But yeah, it's hard to enjoy it for me right now, and I hope that changes.
Well, I guess tomorrow night's going to be the big night to try and enjoy it when
exactly.
it's the big cat against Rory. Tonight with Rory. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that develops. But I guess with the run of events that's led to now, surely you got to be thinking to yourself, okay, we know it's all working. Any bugs been worked out. It's the big one tonight. We know we're going to get a lot of views tonight. Rory, Tiger, got to be good, right?
Yeah. What are your guys' picks?
Man,
well, I've got Boston Common as my team, and I think Dazzler's got.
I got Jupiter Links. Yeah,
so I
got to go Tiger.
So I'm going Rory. I'm going Boston Common.
And the Tiger lineup is Tiger, Kisner, and Tom Kim.
Yeah.
I mean, Kisner,
Tom
guys.
Kim is.
Did you, Evan? Where were you when Kisner came out for that? The problem is with these golf courses as well, mate. You got to carry it like 290 to make it. And Kisner was struggling, wasn't he? I mean, he was struggling.
The only, it's kind of funny because everyone's like the highlights when he bladed the flag. I'm like, but that's great for entertainment value, but not so much for the team.
That trap shot is on a down bank. It's not an easy trap shot.
No. I haven't tried it myself, but I don't fancy myself trying it either. I would say that anyone who's played seems to have the advantage. I think the more practice these guys have, they're performing. The ones who have spent more time. It's not a question of, did they make a concerted effort? I just think it's schedules, right? And it's tight. But I think those, the Jupiter team had a tough time, obviously, their first go of it. Kisner, obviously, to your point, Trottie, it's like maybe they changed the strategy on when he comes into the equation, right? But ultimately, look, I can never bet against T-Dub. And I think he's going to come in smelling blood, and I think he wants it. It's just who he is as a competitor. It's who we know him to be. I'm excited to see what that looks like. I don't think he wants to have 2 losses to start. And he doesn't have to do much walking, right? So I feel good about his stamina. I don't know.
Has anyone had a word with the caddies? The guys that are about setting the screen, because when the first week a lot of guys are missing left, I'm like, all you got to do is do that on the screen and it'll go straight. I don't understand why no one's told those guys that.
I don't know. So that's a great question. I think that's a big learning curve for them as well. The team managers is, I think, what they're calling them. That digital caddy, we developed. There's something we said, you guys have to have it. They didn't really want it. The Tomorrow Sports Group, we're like, no, trust me, you're going to want to have it. But to your point, it's really been something they've emphasized. They have a little camera on it too, looking back to the players when they're strategizing with it. I think the pace of play is so fast that you're not seeing it, like from a broadcast standpoint, nearly enough just because of the speed of play. But those guys, every time they hit a shot, should be right on the monitor and trying to pick their next shot, because a plan's great until it falls apart, right? And then how do you kind of adapt? And I absolutely agree with you, Trottie, that if they kind of understand the utility of it more, you'll start to see them, a little bit more involved with it. But it's certainly something they should be using.
Yeah, just to explain that to people if you haven't played on a full swing simulator yet. First off, you absolutely need to, but you can go up to a touch screen and you can, as Evan is saying, strategize the hole, but also reorientate the screen so that wherever you hit the screen. So, for example, maybe for some better players out there or some people who struggle if you either miss right, obviously Bobsy's talked in previous episodes about just aim left, or if you're someone who likes to turn one over and favor the right side to turn one over, you can actually set these screens up so that it can have you orientated down the right side of the fairway when you hit the middle of the screen. It's mega. It's another great thing.
You're adjusting your center line.
There you go.
And it's shifting to you. So
I was looking for you to help me explain this. I mean, I was bumbling through. I mean, just fucking feel free to step in whenever you want. You didn't make it.
I love it.
I'm also going to propose, I think we should let Daryl and Evan have a conversation off podcast us three get together, design a hole. It goes on next season, and it's a hole sponsored by the Dope Stroke Show. Daryl
Sure.
Sutton.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
love
Daryl's
that.
going to arrange the funding.
It'll have to
for
be a
that,
part
for sure.
3, though, so I can reach. But other than that, we should be good. Let's do it.
It has to be a part 3 so you can afford it on the funding.
Here's something for you guys to know. So once this is kind of all said and done, we're going to be the exclusive partner where we can play these holes on the simulator or the launch monitor software as well. So yeah, it'll be fun to kind of convert these things to the kind of consumer level and see if you can really, some of these shots though. I mean, we have to think about this because some of them it's like a 290 carry to get over something. It's like how are we going to just have the general consumer try to hit that? I don't know. But
We'd all be playing your ball, Bobsy, because I mean that's a decent dig. That, to be fair,
That is a decent
True.
dig, yeah.
Wow.
Fun,
Well,
though.
I think that's a pretty good one to wrap up everything on this call. So, Evan, the first thing I want to say is thank you so much for jumping on this call.
Thank you guys.
It's so good to have
fun.
somebody on the inside, and all the intel and information that you've been able to share with us is epic. So thank you for that. And also your beer recommendation, your beer of choice. Thanks for sharing that with us too. But right now it is time for us to close up.
Whoa. Before you go, I do just want to add, because Evan won't say it because he's too humble. And obviously, McD, I've had so much enjoyment, Evan, being around Full Swing, the headquarters, all you guys, just watching the effort from a little bit of a front row seat has been fantastic. So anyone out there listening to this, be sure to check out Full Swing Simulators. Evan is the main man making this thing tick. But the team there, Evan, and the culture, you guys are great fun. Awesome. And I get to see that, which is why I wanted to say it. So thank you for everything you've done for golf. Thank you.
And you guys alone. I mean, and Trottie, you coming in, and I will have to say, this is probably bad for me to say this, but Trottie, I had no clue who you were.
Legend. My wife doesn't know who I am, so you're not the only one.
No. And I was like, this guy's pretty knowledgeable, this and that. And then I saw someone come in and get an autograph and a picture. I'm like, who? Trottie? The guy we've been, talking to this long, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm an idiot. So, but you've been
That's what my wife said.
You've been absolutely amazing to work with, and I'm so excited to have that we get a chance just to talk to you, pick your brain about stuff, because
Thanks, mate.
a lot of this stuff is very nuanced, and there's a lot of critics out there, but you keep it real too. I mean, you are part of the same kind of culture and vibe that we have, and I think we do a really good job partnering with people that kind of fit that mold. A lot of people talk about culture but don't really live it, and I think you're an embodiment, and you guys as well. I mean, are all an embodiment of kind of what we're about, and it's just such a pleasure. Thank you, boys.
Mate, we absolutely fucking love it. So it's awesome. Dazzler, let's put a bow on this bad boy.
All right, the bow is basically if you've got a beer recommendation yourself, please drop us an email. That'd be great to see. hello@dopestroke.show. And you can find us and this podcast on all the usual places, Apple, Spotify, and also if you want to check us out and see what Evan looks like without his Man United shirt on, then you can check that out on YouTube. Other than that, guys, it's another great episode. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.
Up the Reds.
Cheers, boys.